Good morning, everybody. Good morning from the western side of Western Australia. Good afternoon to the eastern side. And it's probably morning in the likes of Mumbai. It could be any time of the day in other parts of the world. So welcome to you wherever you are in the world. If you haven't been with me before, met with me, my name is Gwenda. And I present to you today yet another of the Heal with Gwenda interviews. Hi Julia, and we have a really exciting interview to do today. I'm so looking forward to Julia sharing her story with you. A little bit of housekeeping, if you like, an introduction first. So the H.E.A.L series is about people that have managed to heal themselves of various different illnesses, pain, things that they might have lived with for a long time, and they finally got fed up with it and found a way to be able to heal themselves past that. So we've had some ladies come and talk about the likes of multiple sclerosis. I've had people that have spoken about having migraines since they were young children and being able to find their way past it in their older lives. In their older years rather. And this series, the idea of the series is for you to be able to see that it is very possible to be able to shift yourself from a place of any kind of disturbance within your life that's causing you not to be able to really embrace your life and enjoy it to its absolute fullest, which what I call everyone deserves to live a glorious life. So you deserve to live a glorious life. And if pain, suffering, hello Emma, how nice to see you. If you have something in your life that is encroaching upon you by way of illness, pain, constant injuries and things, we want you to know that there are ways, thank you ladies, there are ways for you to get past that. And what Julie is going to share with you today is her little journey of being with a very, very painful and crippling skin condition. Hi Zoe, and it's called psoriasis. Now, when I was had my health and wellness centre, and I was a registered personal trainer, master personal trainer, pain therapist, trigger point therapist, the list goes on. But anyway, one of my clients had the most severe psoriasis I've ever seen, even in my nursing years. And I'll bring you on in just a moment, Julia. And she also had really severe osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis, to the point where her fingers had been pinned, because the doctors felt that would be a way to stop them from clawing so that she could continue to have use. Not sure how you continue to have use of your fingers if they've been pinned, but that's what they did. And it was to no avail. So her psoriasis used to come way down here and right around her face and down onto her neck, and then go into the insides of her elbows, backs of her knees, and even down onto her back, and all through her hair. And it would be really, really thick and scabby and very unpleasant and a lot of pain. So she had pain in her very arthritic body. She had minimal use of her arms, and then pain with the psoriasis. Through the protocols and things that we took her through, it all went, and she actually managed to get some movement back in her hands. But what I am really excited about today is to bring Julia on to say hello to you and have her talk to you about her journey with psoriasis. And you'll see when you look at her beautiful face, there's none there. So let's find out how Julia managed to do that. And I'll just bring her on. And it won't be a moment. We press the buttons and press the buttons. Just a jiffy. And then Julia is going to take us for a lovely little walk through. There she is. Walk through her journey. Good morning, Julia. Well, actually, it's good afternoon for you, isn't it?
It sure is. Good afternoon. Lovely to be here.
Thank you very much for coming to share with us your journey of psoriasis. It's a really nasty little skin condition, isn't it?
It definitely is. I had it since before I had the kids. I had it in my early 20s. And then after I had my first child, then just erupted everywhere.
Mm. Yeah, and it just gets nastier and nastier as it goes along, and it gets really scabby and unpleasant through your hair and down your face. But Julia,
Yes.
can you tell us, what do you think led you to a point of saying enough's enough? I'm going to find a way out of this. I don't want to have this anymore.
I've had it for about 20 years odd. In and out between kids, and was on medication and steroids for that time period. So I've always been on some sort of medication, and that involves going to the doctors and seeing a dermatologist. And so that involves time and money. Oh, thank you, Emma. That involves time and money. And then what really made me say, hey, I'm stopping this, is my husband actually got quite sick a few years ago, and our whole life shifted and changed. He unfortunately got bowel cancer, and just seeing him through all the chemo and all the drugs, and just the experience of going to the doctors and listening to the nurses and everything else on that train, as part of that train, I said no. After everything was finished with him, I looked at myself and went, no, I don't want this anymore. That's the time I'm going to stop taking my medication. I'm going to stop taking steroids, and I'm going to try and heal this naturally.
What do you think was your what do you think was your point to know? What do you think helped you know that you could actually do it naturally?
I think once I just made the decision to do it, after that, everything just fell into place like a puzzle. So once I verbally said out loud, this is what I'm going to do, everything in my life just moved around, I guess, to go, okay, this is the next step forward for you. And I had to look at those signs, and I went, oh, maybe that's a sign, and maybe I'll check it out. So, and that led me on the next step, which led me on the next step, which led me changing my diet, which led me changing this and that, and different routines that I had. So I think just making that decision and saying it out loud was the first step for me.
So very powerful, saying something out loud. And I think from your comment there, you've used the word step a few times. So would you like to tell us that you went from this step to this step to this step? So you basically did it like building a pathway and going along with bit by bit. And with each step, did you speak out loud again to say, I am going to move past this, I am going to shift this?
Definitely, because as I started detoxing, during that time I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I actually went on a massive 6-month detox. So during that detox, it was, no, I went vegan, gluten-free, caffeine-free, sugar-free, everything. I just didn't want anything in my life. And with every one of those steps, I had to say, before I went to bed, I did an affirmation every night for like a year, saying out loud to myself before I went to bed, I'm strong, I can do this, I've got this, I'm healing. It's just taking a little bit of time, but it's happening and I'm doing it. So definitely speaking out loud for me was a catalyst for my healing as well. And then I incorporated that into other parts of my healing later on. We'll discuss.
So it's been a journey, hasn't it, Julia?
It has. Because I was covered about 80% of my body. My skin used to change on a daily basis, and I really had to listen to what worked for me and that's really looking at my body and looking internally at my feelings and looking externally at the way my skin was shedding, because at that stage my plaques were quite, hey Zeta, my plaques were quite thick, and the best way of managing that. So then it would just became a lot of maintenance. And I think if you're not used to a lot of maintenance, it becomes a lot of routine and a lot of maintenance and a lot of self-care. So I was spending a lot of time on my own to have to do this. And so I think that was a little bit of the sacrifices that I made, because the year before I was making the sacrifice for everybody else but myself. This year was the time just for me, and I think that that really worked. And you really do have to make the time for yourself to do that, and I had to find time, an hour a day or 2 hours a day, doing what I needed to do to get through to the next step.
So what you were doing essentially was showering yourself in love. We say the word self-care, but you'd stepped away from being of terrific service to your husband through his time of healing and his time of illness. And then you came away to be able to give yourself what we put into terms of self-care. But would you agree that you were actually giving yourself lots of self-love?
Yes, I definitely would. And I've never been somebody to do that on a regular basis, so I didn't know what I was doing. So it became, what's this whole self-love business? But for me, it was being on my own and learning how to breathe and giving me the things that I wanted to do. And so part of the things that I loved doing was having baths. And that was a catalyst also for me to start up a side business. But in helping with the baths and giving myself that 1 hour a night and then applying oils on my skin afterwards, for me, that was self-love and time for myself. And just also with my skin, loosening all the flakes. And so that really, really helped as well. So it was a double-edged, for me, it was I was killing two birds with one stone, and everyone loves that. A little bit of mum multitasking.
As us mums do, several multitasking. So, Julia, when you were in the bath, can you see if you can go back to one of your very earliest baths and see if you can tell us what you remember about what your mind did when you were first in those baths? So the very beginning of having the baths, can you remember what it felt like and what your mind was doing?
So I would, and mind you, just to put a little bit of perspective into things, I used to have a bath every single evening. From 9 o'clock onwards, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, 10:30, I would be in the bath. That would be my time, would be in the bathroom. So I'd block that time. Hubby knew, the kids knew, everybody knew. And I would run the bath, and I would go buy a zillion candles, and I would light it all up. I would have my salt lamp going. I would have my my essential oils running through the diffuser. I would have different scents as well in my candles. So I think having that ambience really helped with the healing aspect as well, and popping bath salts in the thing as well. But I think sitting in the darkness, like I just had this, you were asking me before, and I had this image of my head, and I'm like, the bath was all the way up to the top, and I sat in there, and everything was dark, and I just felt like it was me going to my dark soul, and everything, there was no light there whatsoever. And I'm like, geez, that's a really sad picture. But I think at the time I felt really vulnerable and scared. And
could you remember your mind being busy with lots of thoughts that maybe weren't conducive, or did you find that your mind went straight into a peaceful place? Was it difficult, in other words, for you to go into that peaceful place and that quietness?
At the beginning it was, because the mind was always running around. It's always, what's the next thing to do? What's the next option? What do I have to do tomorrow with the kids? Because mind you, at this stage, you know, Matthew's in second year, still recovering and everything else, and because you're taking on that emotional burden. So I think a lot of it was, you know, my head was in the clouds. I didn't know how to ground. I was all scattered. And I think through the process, just the process of having the bath allowed me to start calming down and start really being okay in the quietness and the stillness of that process. So I think the initial bath was, I'm just going to run a bath. And then it became, I enjoy the process of switching the light off, turning the lamp on, and then moving through, lighting the candles and moving through the motions of doing something. And I think part of that routine really helped bring myself down over
Absolutely.
the few days. Definitely.
And that's the really important bit, I think, Julia, for everyone to hear from you, is that when you very first started, it wasn't a case of getting into a magnificent bath that has that beautiful ambiance about it, and the mind just goes, oh, this is cool, and all the healing starts, because everybody that you ask to sit in silence or to sit in stillness, they last about 15, 20 seconds and start going, it's just too busy in here. So for people who will watch and are watching to hear that is how it started for you, and it took a little while for you to get into that space where it becomes a beautiful ritual for you, where the healing can really start. So as you said at the beginning, steps and steps and steps. So you mentioned 6 months of detox. Tell us about that, because I do gut health and talk about gut health all the time, and people get sick and tired of hearing me. So you tell us, what was it like doing 6 months of serious detoxing?
That is so serious. So I'm just going to move the camera. I've got the light coming through. Fun times. Detoxing, if you've ever been through a detox process, you'll know that when you have no sugar and no coffee, you start getting headaches and you start getting a bit cranky. And when you have it's that first 2 weeks. I think the first 2 weeks is always the hardest with a detox. It's always just going to be that way. And going through that process, I was learning about how when a detox happens, the best way around the best way to eliminate all the toxins out of your system. And at that time, I'd seen Tyler Tolman, if anybody has heard of Tyler Tolman, and I was getting really into him. So then I started seeing what he was about, and skin is one of the biggest ways of detoxing, and salt baths are one of the biggest ways of the skin detoxing and the body detoxing. And I put 2 and 2 together, and I went, this is amazing. I'm going to be having my baths and detoxing at the same time. So it's fabulous. And then during that time, because I was clean eating for a good 3 or 4 months, I just kept eliminating all the crap out of my system. Funnily enough, as I detoxed all the crap out of my system, it was detoxing my emotional self at the same time. And I think that's what got me, was I'm like, wow, getting off refined sugars and getting off the carbohydrates and the gluten for me meant that I got out of this brain fog that I didn't know that I was in. So I was in this big brain fog, and after just detoxing off those simple foods for 2 months was all it took for my brain just to go, it's like a light switch just turned on, Gwenda. It was amazing. And I'm like, people need to be on, they need to detox. This is amazing. This is, I can't believe I've got so much energy now after 4 months. Like, this is amazing. Why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, because the sugar tastes so good. Oh, who's that?
Yes.
The sugar tastes so good that you just got to have so much more of it, and all those little parasites say, feed me, feed me, feed me, and they just love the sugar and the caffeine and all the crap and the carbs. So if I mention the word detox, people's hair stands on end worse than mine. But it's
I think
it's definitely
it's
the emotional side that is where the healing starts. And would you agree then from your experience, because 6 months is a really good stint of detox,
It
that
is.
we
And
have
then,
no idea what our relationship is with food, and we do not understand the underlying dependency we have on a food because of an emotion that is driving it from underneath. Is that what you found, Julian?
correct. Everything correct. Yeah. And that's what you kind of discover about yourself, is you don't really need a lot of food. And food hides, you know, eating different foods hide a lot of emotional stuff. And everybody has emotional stuff. But when it comes to food, I think, yeah, it's one of those things where when you don't have it, it becomes, and then because you haven't had it for a while, you look at other people when they eat their food and you think, oh, that's interesting. And you kind of, I don't know, for me, things shifted and it became, I learned about my more emotional self when I did that, when I learned about food and not needing, I just need enough to feed myself and that's enough now. I don't need to gorge. I don't need to eat all the bad things. I'm still 95% plant-based. I still don't eat gluten. I don't have any, sorry, milk, all of those dairy products at all. So it's become a lifestyle, I think, because I don't want to go back to where I was. And in doing that,
No,
also
and
healed my skin.
there you go. Yeah, that's the big thing. But the really beautiful part, Julia, is the deeper healing, because your skin was only showing that there was such a lot of discord from the spirit, from the soul through. Would you agree?
100%.
So the healing for everyone that is listening and people that will hear us later, Julia's reference to her bath. Water is sacred. Water is a very powerful energy, energetic space. And as Julia has talked about her beautiful bathing rituals, and then detoxing, understanding the food, gets you right down to the core of it. So for everyone that can see her, she's divinely beautiful. Her skin is just divinely beautiful, and you can feel and see her energy and see how well she's done. And
Oh, thanks.
Julia, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it. Is there anything from a healing perspective, if there's anyone watching who has got anything going on with them, not necessarily skin, but it might be psoriasis, it could be severe dermatitis, or anything happening with them, what would you like to offer to them as a way of them starting their healing process?
Connect, I would say connect with a ritual or a routine that appeals to you, because the more you can do that, the more you can see the patterns that start to emerge in your life. And I think and you might not see that straight away, but they'll come up and things will move around to help you to discover these new rituals are really quite healing in themselves. And since with the bath salts and having baths, I've done my own bath rituals now where I speak to the water and I heal like myself through the water, I guess. And then created a range of products that has helped my skin and that I feel good about being immersed in, which I started selling as well. But I think for first timers who watch this video, just start today. Don't wait till 10 years time and go, oh, got no time for that. Because I found when you do begin that journey of self-healing, it might not take a month or two. For me, I thought it would take 6 months. It's taken a little bit longer, but in that healing, I've learned a lot more about myself and how strong I am and how I can make a difference to the world and how I can connect to my higher self and my spirit. And I think if I didn't have that ritual, I wouldn't have been able to learn all the things that I've learnt so far about myself if I didn't have my skin condition. So I think it's a blessing in disguise. And yeah, I think that's, I guess, a great message to give out to people that are listening, or say hi on the replay, or reach out to me and we can have a chat about things later on. But yeah, just begin today. Why not?
Absolutely. And at least make a start. And as Julia said in her talk to us about her journey, it's been a step-by-step, everyone. So no healing is something that you just do overnight or in 5 minutes. Healing goes over a period of time. And the tricky bit that I'd like everyone to know, which Julia, you're very welcome to say as well, if you agree, of course. If you don't, you're very welcome to say that too. But you will go through a particular phase, so you might very well heal a certain part of you. So let's say Julia's, for example, is psoriasis, and she gets all that sorted, and then next year something else comes up. What I want to say to people is, don't think you failed. Don't think that it wasn't worth it. All that means is that there is another message coming up of something that needs to be released from the soul, from the spirit. That's all it is. And really our awakening awareness is, it's a life journey. It's not something that you tick off like the shopping list. It's not something you go, I've got this and I'm done. It's an ongoing thing. So, you know, I say that
Definitely.
it's the most amazing journey you can take in your life. But as Julia says, get started, make it step by step. Don't look at it as a great big picture, because that will really set you back, and you'll go back to your caffeine and your sugar and your everything else.
That's it.
So, yeah.
Day by day.
Well, yeah. So, Julia, thank you so much. If there's anything that you would like to share with everyone, or just to bless them before you go, but thank you so much for being part of the series. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you guys for listening. If anybody wants to hear a little bit more about my story and what I do have an Instagram page and a website, because I do sell some bath products if you're interested. But enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. I'm so blessed that Gwenda came and reached out and found me, because this is me stepping out of my comfort zone and learning a little bit more about myself and my anxieties on a camera, on a live. So thank you.
My pleasure. And Julia has some beautiful body salts, body botanicals. I love the name of her product that is there, and I'll put up a little link for everyone. So if anyone is having difficulty with their skin or wanting to start a beautiful bathing ritual, then these would be the products for you to have. So you can either reach out to Julia, and then of course myself on the Heal with Gwenda page. And Heal with Gwenda is harmonious, enlightened, aligned life. So, Julia, have a blessed day, darling, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye. And thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all very much.
Bye.
Bye.